Thank you so much. Anyone else who's hosting our meetings on a regular basis, I'd quite like you to take note of how complimentary that introduction was. You're more than welcome to do that every time, if you'd like to. It's really great. Good morning. Welcome to Freedom Church Liverpool. A special welcome if you are here for the first time. I know we've referenced students a lot, but there's a lot of new faces here this morning. It's great to see you. You're really, really welcome here. My name's Phil. I'm one of the leadership team here. And over the last few weeks, we've been going through a series in the book of Psalms, and we've called it the good and the bad and the ugly, because we believe that actually in the book of Psalms we find a range of human experiences, a range of human emotions, and we believe the Bible can teach us how to deal with them in a healthy way. It can teach us what to do with them. It can teach us how to take them to God. It's been a good series, yes? You looking forward to the next one, yes? I've got really bad news for you. I'm not doing a psalm. I do apologise. I'm going a little bit off script today. I may regret it. You may wish that I had done a psalm, but we've committed now. This is where we're going, because I've spent a little bit of time this week. I found myself asking a question that I actually think is quite a healthy thing for us to do every now and again. I think it's quite a healthy question for us to ask. And I found myself saying, what is exciting me about Jesus at the moment? What stirs my spirit about him at the moment? What is he speaking to me about at the moment? I think it's a really healthy question for us to ask at different points in our walk with him. And you know, we'll all have different answers to that. Maybe God's been really speaking to you through the Psalms and you're like, Phil, for goodness sake, just do another Psalm. I've been really enjoying this, and I apologize, but maybe he's been speaking to you for your own time with him and your personal devotion, or maybe you're sat here thinking, actually, I don't know this Jesus. This is my first time in church. I don't really have an answer for what I think is beautiful about him, and I'd love to just say you're super welcome. You're really welcome with us this morning. I hope you will hear some of the reasons that we think he is beautiful. You will hear some of the things that he captivates our hearts with. And I think for others, maybe you've been walking with Jesus for quite a long time. And just to be perfectly candid, if I got you one-on-one and said, what's exciting you about Jesus at the minute, you'd gulp and wish I hadn't asked you, because you just think, I haven't really got an answer. It just feels a bit dry. It just feels a little bit stale. It just feels a little bit like I'm going through the motions. And do you know what? I'd love to just invite us all today, whether it's for the very first time or whether it's for the 1,000th time, just to turn our face to him afresh. He's so good how he speaks to us through the worship, isn't he? I apologise because I'm basically going to do a rambly explanation of what Pete and Matt have already very concisely brought to us in worship, but there's that opportunity to come to him and say, Lord, if you are beautiful, which I believe he is, show us your beauty today. If you are beautiful, which a lot of people in this room would say he definitely is, then Lord, just refresh me of your beauty today. Show me who you are again. Captivate me, excite my heart about who you are today. It doesn't have to be an emotion. It doesn't have to be a feeling, but Lord, just capture me afresh this morning. I think it's a really healthy thing to come and do. So I'd love to spend the time this morning, instead of talking about a psalm, just talking about one of the things I realised Jesus is really, really exciting me about at the moment. One of the things that through hard times or through good times sort of keeps me going. Do you know what I mean? Something that I realise is really, really, really beautiful about him. And if you've been in church for a while, I apologise, you would have heard most of this before. I doubt it's going to be new to you, but actually I believe it's really fundamental. If this is a thing that has grown stale for us, then we're in trouble. We're not going to live out this life in the way that he wants us to. There's more on offer for us this morning, and I'd love to, if you'll permit me, just spend some time sharing about that instead. Is that okay? Are we on board? Does that sound all right? So we're going to anchor what we're talking about today in Romans 8. Okay, it's a nice meaty chunk of scripture. And I'm not going to do what we might normally do on a Sunday morning, where we sort of explain all of the meanings that we can find in this passage and some of the context and things like that. I'm actually just going to use it instead as a bit of an anchor. I believe this passage today, it contains all the concepts that I want to talk to you about today. I don't just want to ramble on in my own strength. I might ramble, but I don't want it to be in my own strength. I want to anchor. I want to make sure that we're talking about things that are biblical and that are his will for us. So we're in Romans 8. And it's verses 1 to 17. They're going to appear on the screen. I think it's going to appear in Farsi on the screen. And it might be correctly translated, if we're really lucky. And if not, come and tell me at the end. That's really awkward, but yeah. Romans 8, verse 1 says, "Therefore, there is now no condemnation for those who are in Christ Jesus. Because through Jesus Christ, the law of the Spirit who gives life has set you free from the law of sin and of death. For what the law was powerless to do, because it was weakened by the flesh, God did by sending his own Son in the likeness of sinful flesh to be a sin offering. And so he condemned sin in the flesh in order that righteous requirements of the law might be fully met in us who do not live according to the flesh, but live according to the Spirit. Those who live according to the flesh have their mind set on what the flesh desires. But those who live in accordance with what the Spirit have their mind set on what the Spirit desires. The mind governed by flesh is death, but the mind governed by the Spirit is life and is peace. The mind governed by flesh is hostile to God. It does not submit to God's law, nor can it do so. And those who are in the realm of the flesh cannot please God. You, however, are not in the realm of the flesh, but are in the realm of the Spirit, if indeed the Spirit of God lives in you. And if anyone does not have the Spirit of Christ, then they do not belong to Christ. But if Christ is in you, then even though your body is subject to death because of sin, the Spirit gives life because of righteousness. And if the Spirit of him who raised Jesus from the dead is living in you, then he who raised Christ from the dead will also give life to your mortal bodies because of his Spirit who lives in you. Therefore, brothers and sisters, we have an obligation, but it is not to the flesh to live according to it. For if you live according to the flesh, you will die. But if you live by the Spirit and you put death to the misdeeds of the body, then you will live. For those who are led by the Spirit of God are the children of God. The Spirit you receive does not make you slaves so that you live in fear again. Rather, the Spirit you received brought about your adoption to sonship, and by him we cry, Abba, Father. The Spirit testifies with our spirit that we are God's children. Now, if we are children, then we are heirs, heirs of God and co-heirs with Christ, if indeed we share in his sufferings, in order that we may also share with his sufferings, with his glory. Messed up the last word. Glory. That was the last word, sorry. Paul, who wrote this letter to the Romans, he does this quite a lot. The New Testament's full of letters that Paul writes to churches, sort of addressing specific cultural issues or encouraging them or just putting his finger on the pulse of what really needs speaking into. We see it in the book of Acts as well. He travels all around sharing about Jesus, and he's just got this real knack, this real Holy Spirit gifting of putting his finger on the heart of the problem. Skipping past all the nonsense and getting to the root cause and speaking into it in a way that causes transformation. And I just wonder if Paul were to write us a letter today, in 2023 United Kingdom society, what do you think he'd put his finger on? Like what do you think he would address? What might be some of the things that he says, I'm going to speak into that? That's something that really needs speaking into. I think there's probably a whole range of answers that we could give to that question, but one of the things that I think he would address, one of the things that I think has actually secretly become an idol without us realizing it, a little bit like what Pete brought before, it's something that we have elevated to a higher position than it ever deserved, is the idea of choice. Choice, we've put choice on a bit of a pedestal. You know, we're constantly surrounded by choice, but I think, you're welcome to disagree with me, but I think we've arrived at a slightly odd position as society where we actually value the ability to choose over the choice made. Sometimes we put more value in the ability to make a choice than whether or not the choice itself was a good choice or a bad choice. It's become increasingly difficult to express that we think someone's choice may be a negative one, because we are then taking away the inherent value that the ability to choose has in the first place. We've raised choice as a little bit of an idol. And I think this is largely because we equate choice with freedom. We treat them as though they are the same thing. We say, oh, well, if I am able to choose, then I must be free. I'd say that has probably become our society's definition of what it is to be free. But I just want to make the argument this morning that I think the Bible does not agree with that statement. In fact, I think the Bible says that definition of choice and that definition of freedom is a masquerade. It's way less than it could be. What Jesus is talking about when he talks about freedom is far more than the definition our society has chosen to put on it. There's something much, much more on offer. See, there is a right choice and a wrong choice. I believe that Jesus says, yes, you are free to choose. You are absolutely free to choose. But if you choose me, then you will be truly free. It's not just about the choice. It's about what we actually choose to do with it. You know, there are choices that will lead to, like Chris CB brought us in Psalms 1, lead to us being like trees that are planted by streams of living water, who bear their fruit in season, whose leaves do not wither, and all that they do prosper. There are good choices that lead to good destinations and good outcomes, and I think that is his heart for all of us. His heart is that we would choose the things that are good, we would choose the things that are worth pursuing. Because the thing that's captivated me about Jesus this week, it's not a massive revelation. You will have heard this before, but the thing that I'm just freshly aware of this week is how much more beautiful the choice he offers us is than what the world would say. How much more beautiful it is every time Jesus says you can choose this way, which is my way, or that way, which is the world's way. The Jesus way is always better. Like holistically better. It's always more beautiful. It always arrives at a destination that is so much more fruitful, so much more amazing than any other choice we could have possibly made. Yes, we are free to choose, but one of them is better than the other. And in his goodness, I think he makes that really clear. I think he speaks to us. He says, here is a good choice to make. Here is a good thing to do. And I am inviting all who would listen. You know, the verses that we've read in Romans 8, they talk about how our default allegiance is to the flesh. Humanity's nature is to seek that which would make us happy, is to seek that which would satisfy. And as a result, we've created this culture where there are infinite things calling us by name. There are infinite pursuits, infinite experiences, infinite people and places and possessions that are all calling us by name, saying, Phil, come and find your satisfaction here. Phil, come and place your hope and your trust in me. Phil, you are free to choose. Come and choose me. It's a good thing to do. But the problem is, those things don't work. The problem is, it's not just a case of carefully balancing all those different components until we arrive at satisfaction. It's not about having the right number of friends and the correct amount of possessions and the right job and the right experiences and making sure you go on holiday at least once a year and all that sort of stuff. None of that actually adds to lasting, prolonged satisfaction. It's a faulty solution to our need to be satisfied. It's an improper one. It's an incorrect one. And actually, far worse than that, what really ends up happening is because we are seeking this satisfaction, our relationship with these things becomes part of the problem. It becomes problematic, it becomes warped, and it becomes distorted. Even with good things like friendships and exercise, which I'm really keen on, and food, and good things like fun, like time with family, like charity work, things that you could hold up and say, oh yeah, they are objectively good things. The problem is our relationship with them isn't good. It leaves goodness, it becomes something else, it becomes warped, it becomes distorted. These areas become breeding grounds for what we would call sin, things that are not God's will. They become breeding grounds for destructive behaviors, either behaviors towards ourselves or behaviors towards people around us, because we are using them to fulfill something that they cannot fulfill. When we look to the worldly things, expecting them to fulfill us and to find lasting satisfaction, we do not find it because it simply cannot be found there. That is not where it resides. That's not where it lives. It's an improper pursuit. And instead, what we find is actually far from this infinite choice just being simply things that we can choose from and enjoy a bit of this and enjoy a bit of that and fill our lives with the right combination. Far from that, what actually happens is that they become things we must pursue. They become things that we chase after with increasing levels of intensity. They become the things that make us feel like life is worth living. They become the reason that we get out of bed in the morning, and all the while, what is really happening is that the things of this world have become the master that we serve. They've become the fickle, fickle master that we serve. They become like chains around our neck. The verses in Romans that we've read, they phrase it quite starkly. They say that we find ourselves under the law of sin and death. We find ourselves governed by the flesh. That which presented itself as freedom, that which presented itself as choice, in fact reveals itself to be the absolute opposite. It binds us, it restricts us, it does not lead to freedom. And I wonder if that's an experience that you can relate to this morning. If that's something that sounds familiar. You know, it happens on all different scales. Sometimes it's just one little area of our lives. We realize, that thing, or that person, or that place, or that experience, we just realize I'm putting way too much weight on that. That thing was not designed to bear the weight of satisfaction that I am trying to get from it. Sometimes it's as simple as that. Sometimes it's far bigger. We realize that I am just wholly unsatisfied. There must be more to life than this. We have those moments. My story, I won't go into all the details today, but it's absolutely that. I arrived at a place where I sought satisfaction in drugs and actually ended up in a place where they just did not satisfy at all. They did not offer freedom. Those things that were presented to me as something I could choose to indulge in and choose to enjoy when I wanted actually became a really heavy chain around my neck that I was powerless to do anything about. I was powerless to remove. I was powerless to take off. I had submitted myself to this world. I was serving a master that was not a good one. So I just want to ask this morning, what do we do instead then? What do we do with those feelings? Where can we take that dissatisfaction and find answers? You know, the very cure that our society would point to, just filling your life with the right balance of things, actually is part of the problem. It's not the cure. It's quite the opposite. It binds us further. So if our whole society doesn't have the answer, then to where can we turn? And this is where this morning I believe that the choice that Jesus offers us is just far better. The choice that Jesus offers us is just far more beautiful. He says, don't seek your fulfillment and your satisfaction in the things of this world. The things that are never designed to fulfill your satisfaction. The things that were never designed to hold up the whole weight of you as a person. Don't seek them there. Come and follow me instead. And it will mean leaving some stuff behind. There's harmful behaviors that he wants us to get rid of. There's places that he might say, you shouldn't go there anymore. There's friendships that he might say, that one's actually not a good idea. You might need to let that one down. There's possessions that he might say, that is not yours to own anymore. There's pursuits that he might say, don't chase after it. It's bad for you. And he says, I know that sounds like you are not free. I know that's what the world would say about me. It sounds like I'm telling you what to do, but that is a lie. That is not the case. I have came that you would know what it truly is to be free. Come and follow me. He's not like the master that we are used to serving. He's not fickle. He never asks us to keep chasing from one thing to the next, to the next, to the next. He never asks us to go out in search of satisfaction. Instead, the mind governed by his spirit, as we read, knows life and knows peace. It's a much better promise. It's a much better choice for us this morning. Verse 14 says, for those who are led by the Spirit of God are the children of God. The Spirit you received, it does not make you slaves so that you would live in fear again. Rather, the Spirit you received brought about your adoption to sonship. And by him we cry, Abba, Father. When we choose to enter into a relationship with him, it's totally different to the one that we're used to. It's totally different to our relationship with the world that would place heavy chains around our neck. We're not swapping out those chains for just a different set of chains. That's not the offer that Jesus has for us this morning. It's not a slave and master relationship. Instead, we enter this new relationship as adopted children, as sons. The word sons it's deliberate there, because at the time that this was written, to be an adopted son would mean that you inherit everything of the family. You inherit all of their belongings. You inherit all of their possessions. Nothing is held back from you. We are adopted as sons, not slaves, sons. And as a result, when we make that choice, when we choose the better offer that he is holding before us, we can stop living in fear. We can stop living in the fear of the unknown. That can be left in the past, because we've chosen to follow the one who guides our path, who makes our steps straight. Fear of the unknown is no longer an issue, where in our own strength, we never quite know what is coming around the corner, and we definitely are not equipped to handle it. Instead, through Jesus, we find the Father that has been missing all of this time. The Father that's been missing in our lives all of this time. Where the end result of a choice to seek satisfaction in the world would mean missing out on the only relationship that can truly satisfy. The choice to follow Jesus instead leads to a life in all of its fullness, with the Father who longs to draw infinitely close to us. I feel the need to apologize. I feel like it's come out in the worship this morning. I feel like he's speaking to us about it from different verses than I've chosen this morning, and from a different heart almost. But it's good. This relationship that he has on offer for us, it's so much better. There's no bondage involved. There's no chains. There's no slavery. It's Father and Son. I can't emphasize that enough. It's freedom in a way that we're almost not equipped to understand until we step into it and go, oh, this is what it means to be free. I don't know if you know that Nina Simone song, I Wish I Knew How It Feels to Be Free. You're talking about slavery, the terrible things that were done to Africans and African Americans and people throughout history, but I wish I knew how it would feel to be free. I think that's the cry of all of our hearts. I think that's the cry of all of us on a deeper level than we ever realize. Something within us is saying, I just wish I knew how it would feel to be free. And Jesus says, come and step into this relationship and I'll show you. I'll answer that request. I'll give it to you freely. You know, we can't find a proxy for that in the world. We can't find a substitute. There will always be a deep longing within us when we do not have an active and alive relationship with him, because we're not living in the purpose for which we were created. You know, it's why God went to the lengths that are described in this passage in Romans, that he would give it all just so we have a choice to live in a restored, renewed relationship with him. Where our sin, where our wrong choices would be a barrier to living in a relationship with a holy, just God. Jesus came as a sinless one, as we've heard about already this morning, to pay the price for all sin, for all the wrong that ever had been, all the wrong that was, and all the wrong that ever will happen. He came to remove that barrier in a moment, to break it down, to shatter it, to absolutely get rid of it. He came to show that there are consequences. Our choices matter. It's not just about the freedom to choose. There is a right choice and there is a wrong choice, but actually he is willing to bear the full weight of our wrong choice. He is willing to bear the full consequence of that so that we would truly be free to choose relationship with him, and that we could do that knowing that we don't need to feel guilt. We don't need to feel condemnation. We don't need to feel shame. It's a much more beautiful offer this morning than what the world would say. I think anyway. You know, I just think there's those of us that Jesus is speaking to just really, really directly about this. He would say, you know what it is. You know what it is to run the rat race. You know what it is to seek satisfaction anywhere that you possibly can. You know what it is to keep looking for happiness. You know what it is to try and fill that longing, but it's a journey that's getting really weary now. His offer is different. His offer it's far better. He says that we can choose not to strive. We can choose not to toil. We can choose not to try and delicately balance all the things this world would offer as an answer to satisfaction, only to wind up feeling more empty than when we've started. Instead, his offer is come. Taste and see of the goodness of God, because the price has already been paid for each and every one of us. No amount of your toiling would help in this situation. No amount of your trying hard would help. No amount of your striving would contribute anything to this. The price has already been paid. Come, taste and see that the Lord is good, knowing that we don't need to earn that relationship is a gift that he has won. It's freely given, and he is the one who guards it with his very life. He guards our right to choose him with his very being. He sent his only son to die for it. He's willing to protect it. It matters to him. It's valuable to him. And actually we get to find this Father who is outside of time, whose resources are infinite, who wants to draw closer than we can possibly imagine, like we've heard about so succinctly put from Matt this morning. He becomes the place where we can draw our satisfaction, the one who will never fade, the one who will never perish, the one who will never say, oh, I just need a bit more of that now to start feeling satisfied, the one who is eternal, the one who is yesterday, today, and forever the same, the one who is in all things and by whom all things are held together. That is the one that we get to draw our satisfaction from. Does that not sound like a better offer this morning? I think we know. I think we know what it is, each and every one of us, to seek satisfaction in the things of this world, only to see them crumble like dust. I'm reminded of Thanos and Infinity War and all that stuff, how quickly things just fade, how quickly things just disappear, just revealed for the dust that they are. God will never crumble. God will never fade. He is the Father that shows up each and every single time. In fact, he's the Father who never left. We're not waiting for him to arrive. He has said, no, the way to me was always there, and I've made it clear and apparent to you through my Son, Jesus, crucified and resurrected, that you would know and hear my invitation loudly through a loudspeaker. Come. Come and be satisfied. Come and come and drink deep from the well that never runs dry and never runs out. And I know that's not like a practical application talk this morning. I apologize for that. I know there's not here's 3 things that I want you to now go and do with this, but I just think there's something about turning to him afresh and saying, Lord, just remind me of your beauty this morning. Sarah and I got married recently, and it makes you realize, was that a really quiet whoop then? Thanks, Sarah. It makes you realize some of the things that you take for granted. Okay, I love Sarah very, very much. Just prefixing that, I love Sarah very, very much, okay? But one of the things that happened quite early was Sarah said, because we do some long drives together sometimes, maybe I should go on your insurance. And I thought, oh yeah, that'd be really helpful. That'd be a great idea. And then what I realized was actually happening is Sarah wanted to borrow my car sometimes. I think she probably prefers my car a little bit to her own. And, it's not a particularly nice car. It gets called the Dadmobile. It's not particularly cool. It's not fast. It's not sporty, but I like it. It's my car. I'm comfortable in my car. It's a good car. And it's only when I end up in Sarah's little Renault Clio that I realize just how much I take my own car for granted. It's only when I end up in a little fella that I realize, oh, actually, I much prefer my own car. I think we're so quick, aren't we? We're so quick to take the good things in our life for granted. And I think that applies to Jesus so much more. So much more. If he was taken away from us, never mind having to borrow another car. If he left, if he walked out of this relationship, if he became the thing that I realized I was taking for granted, the consequences would be massive. We'd know it. If he walked out, we'd realize, say, oh, Jesus is gone. I'm not in relationship with the Father anymore. I think we're quick to forget how beautiful he is. We're quick to forget what he's won for us. We don't even see the ways in which he's providing for us on a daily basis. And I just think there's an invitation this morning. Turn your face to me afresh. Turn your face to me afresh. Just be reminded of my beauty. I think he would say to us, I want to show you the areas I'm providing for you in that you don't even realize. We heard about security. I think he would say, I want to show you how I have shored you up. I want to show you the rock that I have placed you on. I want to show you who you really are. Because I promise you'd notice if I took that away. You'd notice if that left. I want to remind you of it. I want to remind you of who I am and what I've done for you. And I just encourage you, if you're saying to him for the millionth time, Lord, I need reminded of your beauty this morning, that's great. That's a good thing to do. There's never too many times that we can do that. But I'd also just love to encourage you, if you've never said that before, if you've never said, Lord, show me how beautiful you are, he is desperate to answer that prayer. We can pray, Lord, I don't even know if you're real, but if you are, show me how beautiful you are. He is desperate to answer that prayer. That's how I became a Christian. I said, Lord, I don't know if you're real, but if you are, okay. That was my prayer, and he blew me away. He absolutely blew me away with his beauty. I just encourage you, if you've never said that before, come and speak to me, or speak to Matt, or speak to someone who's brought you here this morning. He's just desperate that we would turn our face to him afresh this morning. Is that okay?